allow us to have better environment, better dealings, better financial systems, better political systems, and so on. Now, financial systems in general stem from political systems, right? And political systems stem from the values that the people that occupy that system have. If you have good people, you're going to have a good system. If you have bad people, you would have a bad system. So it's our responsibility as Muslims, as stewards, as Allah mentioned, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً, that we are... Okay, you done? Okay. So it's very important that we become good successors upon the earth. ثم جعلناكم خلائف في الأرض من بعده لننظر كيف تعملون. That Allah has made us successors upon the earth to see how we would do, and the point is to do good and to have the best of dealings. Now, to delve into digital money or cryptocurrencies, I want to go back in history to cover the motivation behind cryptocurrency. Did the person who came up with it, or the group of people come up with it because they wanted to make money? Or what exactly was the reason why they were so motivated to come up with what we call cryptocurrency? So there were a group of people who saw the flaws of the current financial system. The current financial system has flaws of currency debasement. What does that mean? Your currency has a certain value, and all of a sudden, the central bank or the Federal Reserve debases the currency. It happened in Nigeria last year, right? The Naira had a certain value, maybe around 460 Naira, and overnight, it was floated and became 800 or so, and higher. That's one problem. Second problem is the problem of inflation. What happens when the government prints new money? New money makes the old money worthless or less valuable. And that's why you have the prices of goods and services continue to rise because of inflation. Inflation in Nigeria is today nearing about 30%. So the other problem that these people identified is that the financial system is a central system. That you have a central authority that dictates the monetary policy. A central system that says the Naira, value of the Naira is this today and tomorrow they can float it. And if you have good people in that central system, you would have a good currency. If you have bad people in that central system, then you're going to have a bad currency. So these were the three main problems. Currency debasement, it has happened throughout history. The printing of new money that brings about inflation. And number three is that you have made power central for the issuance and the control of funds. So when we go back to 1996, there was a group called the Cypherpunks. So they identified these three problems and saw that the banks were incompetent and the banks were prone to hacks, and also that there was no privacy. So whatever you do, whatever money you spend, the bank has a record. And if the bank is not secure enough, that data can end up in the hands of wrong people, right? There's so many times you try to make a transfer and it doesn't go through. Do you know what's happening? Certain times it's a hit. The bank is hit by hackers. And that's why sometimes you have downtimes. But of course they wouldn't tell you because they want you to remain their customer. So now, these guys came up with something called DigiCash. It's an online money that could be spent anywhere in the world without requiring users to hand over any personal information. So it employed something called public cryptography to allow for people to sign off on these transactions. So you just sign off on the transaction, so you have something like a private key. Just think of it as a key that only you have. You sign off on the transaction. You don't need to tell the system who you are. You just sign off and the transaction goes through. But DigiCash was a central authority. It was a company, it's a group of people that run a company. So you still haven't solved the problem of a central authority because it's a single point of failure. If that central authority fails, then you have a problem. The currency becomes worthless. And that's exactly what happened to DigiCash. The company went bankrupt in 1998 and the currency became worthless. But these guys didn't give up. Remember, they were fed up with the Federal Reserve. They were fed up about currency debasement and those two other problems I mentioned. So basically, they wanted good money that could be spent anywhere. If you go into another country, you have to change your money into the currency of that country. So they just wanted something that was portable and you could spend it anywhere. And they continued to put in efforts. Now, in 1997, remember the problem that wasn't solved? Remember the problem? DigiCash was still a central authority. Now, in 1997, there was a guy called Adam Back. So he came up with something called Hashcash. So you can think of it as an enhanced version of DigiCash. So he solved one basic problem, that you could have a digital currency that cannot be endlessly copied. So imagine I have a file now. A digital currency is just basically something like a file. But if someone copies it, and somebody else copies it, then you have endless of them, right? Right? And I'm going to crack a joke here. You know, there's a government agency I was opportune to, work with. They wanted another agency to give them the data that they had. But that agency was adamant. They said no. And the other agency says, the law says you have to give us the data. And then those guys said, okay, we'll give it to you, but we wouldn't give you the original data. We would give you a copy. But those other guys kept on saying, you have to give us the original. But is there a difference? If somebody gives you a copy of a file, you have the same file. So there's no original or fake, right? So now, Hashcash was able to solve this problem. That now you have digital money that you couldn't just copy endlessly. It's used something called hash functions, cryptographic hash functions. So basically, these are equations that they're easy to solve, but you can't reverse engineer it. Or it's going to be very difficult to reverse engineer it. That was how he solved this problem. So think of it as multiplying two numbers, two long numbers. You have maybe 2,000 by 3,571. You can easily get it. Even a primary school student can do that for you. But what if you gave him the answer and told him, give us the two numbers that would equate this? It would be very difficult, right? Very difficult. So that was how he was able to solve that problem. So basically, Hashcash now became scarce because you can't make endless copies. And that's the problem that they were trying to solve, that the central bank shouldn't be able to print endless money because the existing money is going to become worthless. So Hashcash was able to solve this problem. But again, you still haven't solved the problem of the money being in a central authority, whether it be a company or a group of people. So these guys were really motivated. They had deep motivation to, solve this problem. And later on, after years, in 2008, there was a guy that was able to solve this problem. And he was the one who came up with Bitcoin. I'm sure you've heard of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was a true decentralized digital money. So basically, you have money that you don't need to rely on a central authority that you have to trust. Now it's decentralized. So let me give you an example. Think of a logbook, okay? Everybody in the masjid has that logbook, and we have a copy of everybody's account on that logbook. Now, if I wanted to send money to our sheikh here, what would happen is everybody that has that logbook can be able to check and see Bashir's bank account, or they call it wallet, does it have the 10 naira he's trying to send to Sheikh? And everybody is able to confirm. Remember, there is no central person calling the shots. Everybody is able to confirm. And then everybody can now log that on the logbook and say, yes, this transaction has been approved. Because Bashir has 10 naira in his account. And they've been able to confirm that. So it's basically computer software that is all able to do this in a decentralized way, whereby you don't have one central authority. I don't know, did I confuse you or it's clear? It's clear, right? So you don't have one authority that you have to trust. You just trust the people, and people trust their computers. Or you trust your logbook. You keep it safe. So now this guy that came up with Bitcoin, he sent out an email to that same group, cypherpunks. And he says, I've been working on a new electronic cash system that's fully peer-to-peer, with no trusted third party. So now, if I'm sending money with the current system from, let's say I have a bank account with Access Bank, and I'm sending money to someone with Zenith or even Access, the bank is the authority in the middle, right? And if you're sending between two banks, between the two banks there is the Nigerian interbank settlement system, right? So this guy, in that decentralized manner, he was able to come up with money that the people have trust in that money. They don't have to trust a system. They don't have to trust a central authority. They don't have to trust a bank. So basically, if I were to transfer money in Bitcoin, this is how it's going to look like. Basic 5 steps. So I initiate a transfer of Bitcoins from my account. My account is secured with a pair of keys. There's a public key that everybody in the masjid that has a logbook would know. And with that public key, there's also another private key. And that private key is only mine. And I alone have access to that private key. So I would initiate the transfer with my private key and say that I approve this transaction. That transaction will be broadcasted to everybody on their system or logbook. Okay? Now the second step is everybody on the network would make sure that I have the amount that I'm trying to send. Right? I have sufficient funds to send that money. And then that log in the cryptocurrency world, or using the underlying technology blockchain, would now create a block. We've discussed blockchain in the past. You can refer to that lecture. So now, all of the computers or the logbooks will now start racing to have that transaction approved. And the person who is able, or the system that is able to approve that transaction, now gets a new bundle of bitcoins. The person is rewarded. So everybody that has approved the transaction would have that log or the block in their own ledger. Everybody has that logbook. And the person that is able to approve that transaction faster than the others now gets to create new currencies. So that's how new currencies are brought into the world. And now, after that, all of the computers will now start compiling the list, the new list. There's a new list because that transaction has been approved and the list is updated. And then everybody now has that as the new updated ledger, we call it, or the updated logbook. So do you see that I'm able to make a transfer of money in a decentralized way, and everybody in the network is able to approve without a necessary central authority. It sounds very simple, but previously it was impossible. So the system, Bitcoin, was designed so that no one other than the holder of the private key could send money or could access the bank account, or as it's called, the address. So everyone would be confident that there would only be one public, unalterable record of what everyone in the system and the users have been able to verify. Okay? So now, this guy, they call him Satoshi Nakamoto, even though the name really doesn't matter. He now mentioned, while after it went live, that the root problem with conventional currency or fiat currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. So that trust has to be in a central bank. Now the central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, as we mentioned. But the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. And you don't blame them. Anybody remember the crisis in 2008? Financial crisis in 2008 is widely known. So what happened was, the financial system, because of these issues that we mentioned, crashed. And the US government had to print in new money to keep the economy going and to bail out these banks. And once you float in new money into the economy, then the old money becomes worthless and the prices of goods, skyrocket. So these guys began to market Bitcoin. And some of the slogans they used was that you should be safe from unfair monetary policies. Remember, the central bank is just a group of people. A small group of people, and a small group of elite have access to them. So if these people don't have justice or sincerity with them, then they would always do that which is not in the benefit of the larger population. So some of the other slogans they used were, be safe from the monopolistic central banks and the risks with centralized power of money supply, the limited inflation of the Bitcoin money supply is distributed evenly. So everybody in the system has equal powers. The powers are distributed evenly in that decentralized manner throughout the network. So there is no monopoly. The bank doesn't have a monopoly over the network. So now, the brief history is basically people trying to solve a problem. Very important. People trying to solve a problem. In the Sharia, الحكم على شيء عن تصوره, صح? That the hukum of something, or whatever it is is basically how you characterize it, how you describe it. So a lot of scholars that have gone ahead to say halal or haram on the matter of cryptocurrency weren't told that the whole idea behind cryptocurrency is that there were people trying to solve a problem of government monopoly, a problem of injustice, a problem of dhulm. Very, very important. And that's why I wanted to go through the history. So, just quickly to wrap up the history, you had DigiCash. It couldn't solve that problem of, continuous printing. Then you had Hashcash. It was able to solve the problem. But again, Bitcoin then came and solved that problem of decentralization. You don't have a single authority that you have to trust. Okay? And these principles align with the principles of Islamic banking and finance. Islamic banking is all about equity, no dhulm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, إِنِّي حَرَّمْتُ الظُّلْمَ عَلَى نَفْسِي, that he has prohibited oppression upon himself. But these authorities always oppress the general public, right? So now, Bitcoin evolved, and that code of Bitcoin was open source. So there's this controversy that the person who made it is still not known. But does anybody know the person who made a microphone? Huh? Does it matter? It doesn't matter, because it's already out there and it's available, and everybody can verify that. You can verify that the microphone works, and you can also verify that Bitcoin actually works in the manner of, or with the attributes of good or successful money. So over time, you now had a spring up of so many other cryptocurrencies. There are over 23,000 of them. And these other cryptocurrencies don't have or try to solve a niche problem. So maybe they saw some limitations of Bitcoin, and they now try to say, okay, how can we issue a currency that can make Bitcoin, that is going to be faster than Bitcoin? So I want a scenario whereby Sheikh is in the United States, I'm in Nigeria, and I'm sending him money, and he can receive it in seconds. If you were to do a transfer to the bank, how long will it take? It's going to take at least 3 days, right? But you can do that with cryptocurrency instantly. And if I'm sending money to Sheikh in the US, the bank is going to charge me very high fees. And these guys were also fed up with those high fees. And they wanted something that was instant with low fees. And all of these are good for the community, right? So you had so many of these cryptocurrencies evolve. But not all of them, or most of them, don't have the decentralization that Bitcoin has. Some cryptocurrencies would say, okay, we're issuing a currency that would facilitate cross-border payments. Some would say, we're issuing a currency that is going to be used or in a particular industry, in the logistics industry. Some would say, we're going to issue a cryptocurrency that would be used in the capital markets. For example, if you wanted to sell a stock, how long will it take to settle? It takes a few days to settle. So this cryptocurrency would say that we can solve that so that these transactions are settled immediately. So you have so many of them. And then over time you had stable coins. Remember, cryptocurrency is very volatile. Very, very volatile. And this is why a lot of you advise that one should stay away from it. But the counter argument is that if you were to look at the chart of the Naira in the last few months, the Naira was more volatile than Bitcoin. So do you then say the Naira is impermissible? No. Okay? So you now have stable coins. Coins that would represent the US dollar. The stable coin, for example, USDT or USDC, is basically a representation of the dollar, but in digital format. And some of them would actually go through third-party verification. They would go through the SEC approval. For example, USDC is a currency, is a stable coin that represents the United States dollar, but for every USDC that is issued, there is a proven reserve in the bank. So you're sure that whatever CBDC or USDC you're holding, you have the reserve in the bank. So it's not just something that is arbitrary. Then after that, we now have central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Remember, the central banks have realized that there is value in what these guys have built over the years. The worth of transactions of cryptocurrency in Nigeria last year alone was worth $60 billion. It's a lot of money. $60 billion worth of transactions. Today there are over 500 million people that utilize cryptocurrency. So, and the central bank see that we can't afford to not be part of this, right? So they would now issue a CBDC to basically show the people that there is a representation of the central bank issued currency that also can be used in the cryptocurrency market. And in Nigeria we have one called the e-Naira. And CBDCs, remember, they're issued by the central bank. Now it's central, right? So it doesn't have the value of Bitcoin, for example, that is decentralized. And the currencies that are issued by central banks, the CBDCs, they have their own different attributes. The blockchain that runs Bitcoin is public, so everybody can join, anybody can join. But for that of the central bank, it's private. So they've kept it private so that there will be transparency and they can monitor carefully what is going on. I know we've seen some scandals in the news in the past 2 weeks, for example, in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, right? That monies were misappropriated. There was a memo whereby over 500 million was sent into an account, or should have been sent into an account. It wasn't sent. But what is the solution to the problem that they were trying to solve? What they were trying to do is send money to so many people in a very transparent way. The solution is the e-Naira. Because not only can you send the money like the traditional banking system, it is programmable money, which means you can set an expiry to that money. The government is giving an intervention to farmers. We want you to spend this money by so time. We can set an expiry to that money. And more importantly, if you want that money to be used for a certain or a particular type of transaction, for example, you say we want farmers to use this currency to only purchase fertilizer. You don't want them to go and use it to do something else. You can do that with the e-Naira. Solution is there. So, from a decentralized Bitcoin, the industry has evolved and you can see so many benefits. Benefits of transparency, benefits of trust in the system. So now, why should you invest in cryptocurrencies? Why? Is it halal or haram? We're going to get to that, inshallah. The reason why you should invest is the importance of wealth generation. Wealth generation is very, very important. I remember Dr. Bashir was here yesterday, and he mentioned that Uthman ibn Affan, radiallahu anhu, businessman. So some of the plots of land of government, what he did was he came up with PPPs, public-private partnerships. He would give someone the plot of land, go and do something with the land. And before that, what was coming into the purses of government was around 9 billion dirham. But from these PPPs, he was able to gather 50 million dirham annually. 50 million dirham annually from PPPs. So wealth generation is very, very, very important. Very, very important. Because wealth generation allows you to be effective in the society. If you saw the news recently, Nigeria lifted the ban on cryptocurrencies. Why? Because they saw value. There's $60 billion worth of transactions, and we have no purview whatsoever of what is going on there. Not only don't we have purview, we don't have the ability to get a cut out of what those people are making. We can't charge fees, we can't tax those people. So in India, for example, they were very quick to see this opportunity. And whatever profits that you make, you have to give 30% in taxes. So the Nigerian government in 2021 banned it, but now they've reversed it because they've seen that this thing is here to stay. It's not some arbitrary or Ponzi scheme. It's actually here to stay. So the other reason why you should invest is there is a new bull market coming. When we say bull market, the markets are going to go up. Bear market, market's going to go down. The reason why the market is going to go up is because there is better adoption. If you've seen the news, the US government and these people that came up with Bitcoin were fed up with, they've now issued Bitcoin ETFs. An ETF is an exchange traded fund. So it gives you exposure to a certain commodity without you actually having to own it. So if the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, is approving a Bitcoin ETF, what does that tell you? That Bitcoin is here to stay. And if the more people are adopting it, that tells you that the value is going to go up. Now, some of the opportunities, inshallah, I'm not going to give financial advice here, okay? I'm not going to tell you which coin to buy and which not to buy. But some of the opportunities that are upcoming, number one, AI, artificial intelligence, right? What is the most valuable company on earth today? Who can help us? What's the most valuable company on earth today? Come on. Huh? Saudi Aramco? No. Google, Apple, you're close. No, not yet. Not yet. They make the operating system that majority of people use. Microsoft. You said something. Sorry? It used to be Apple, but now it's Microsoft. Microsoft is the most valuable company on earth today. If you check the news, less than a week ago, one of the catalysts that has risen the valuation of is the heavy investments and adoption of AI, artificial intelligence. And now artificial intelligence is about to converge with the technology that runs cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, blockchain, sorry. So there are coins, for example, that are created to solve a particular niche problem in the AI industry. That is, for example, Graph, GRT. Basically, it allows for AI development on blockchain. Remember, blockchain allows for smart contracts, and for there to be that transparency that is trustless, so the trust is in the system. So for you to be able to do AI development, that allows for. Another very important opportunity that is upcoming is something called tokenization of real-world assets. I think it sounds very fancy, but basically what it means is every asset you can think of, would have a digital representation or digital ID on the blockchain. And that would allow it to be traded on the spot from anywhere in the world. This is the future that we're getting into. This is no joke. There is a company called BlackRock. They're the largest asset manager in the world. They manage assets of over $10 trillion. Not naira, dollars, $10 trillion. BlackRock. And they're very clear on this opportunity of tokenizing real world assets. So, cryptocurrencies that are in these two industries are very good opportunities that we have to take part in, inshallah. Now, I want to address this issue of, is Bitcoin or cryptocurrency halal or haram? And I know, when something comes that is new, you would have different scholars saying different things. A scholar will tell you it's halal. He will tell you, as long as people believe in anything to be money, it's money. So the principles of dealing with money just apply to it. And that's all you have to care about. And others would say, we don't know. Others would say it's haram. Clear cut. But most of the people that say it's haram, or all of them, what is the evidence that it's haram? Remember, very, very important ruling in the Sharia, that everything is permissible until proven impermissible. Everything is permissible until proven impermissible. So, what I'm going to do is, I will just lay out some of the questions that anybody or a Muslim should ask about cryptocurrencies. Whatever coin you come across, you should ask these 5 questions. And these principles, I call them, I took them from a very famous sheikh in the US. He's called Sheikh Joe Bradford. He's a graduate of Islamic University of Medina. And he has really researched this area properly. So number 1 is that the coin must be a store of value. Okay? If whatever you want to purchase, it's not clear that the value you exchange for it is really safe. It has to be a store of value, it has to be safe. You have to be sure that there are security protocols and that it actually runs on blockchain. There's a coin that was called OneCoin. They even came to Nigeria. But guess what? From the start till the day it collapsed, they never ran it on a blockchain. It was just something that a particular lady came up with, and every morning she could just change the value. Okay, it's worth $2 today, and she would say tomorrow it's worth $5. So you have to check and be sure that it's a store of value. Number 2, it is a medium of exchange. It's a coin, it's a currency, you have to be able to use it. The ability to use the coin is what makes it a currency to begin with. Now, if those who developed a cryptocurrency are telling you that you'll make more money by just holding it, then you should stay away from it. The whole point of the currency is for it to be used. But if they're telling you that you're going to get more from just holding it and not actually bringing up a use case for its usage, stay away from it. Because there's something ongoing behind the scenes. And it's usually not for a good reason, right? Number 3, very, very important. Transparency about the recourse. If it's decentralized like Bitcoin, you don't have anything to worry about. Okay? But if it's the other currencies, the other cryptocurrencies, then it's centralized. You have to check that, for example, there's a third party that has audited and made sure that this cryptocurrency is actually safe and it's built on a blockchain and so on. And all of these you can find usually in the websites and studying the white papers if you check. The reason why this is very important is A lot of people, what they do is something called a pump and dump stock market. So somebody would go and buy a coin at the very early stages. They call it an ICO. It's similar to an IPO when a company is trying to go public, right? It's purchased and immediately it starts to trade and the value goes up, they sell it. And what happens? Ooh, it goes down. So the reason they call it a rock pull is, it's like somebody standing on a carpet, on a rock carpet, and you pull them. If you pull them, you've made them not balanced. So basically, you've issued something that was never going to hold any value to begin with. And once it started trading, you told people to bring in money, and once it started trading, it created some value, you sold it off, and went away with people's money. In the Sharia, it's called أَكُلْ أَمْوَالَ النَّاسِ بِالْبَاطِلِ. It's mentioned in the Quran, in Surah At-Tawbah, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْأَحْبَارِ وَالرُّهْبَانِ لَيَأْكُلُونَ أَمْوَالَ النَّاسِ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Basically, you're taking the money of people or the wealth of people unjustly. So you've taken people's money and you've run away with it. Okay? Number 4, very, very important. The tokenomics are not like that of a Ponzi scheme. What is a Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme is basically, think of a pyramid. I bring in somebody to invest and I get a cut, I get a percentage. And that person brings in maybe 5 other people. The 2 people get a cut and the first person also gets a cut. That is a Ponzi scheme. Okay? That is a Ponzi scheme. If any cryptocurrency has that kind of reward system, then you should stay away from it. Number 5, which is also very important, is that the coin has to have an established or projected permissible real-world use case. So you can't just create a coin and say it's for fun. If a coin is for fun, stay away from it. Because once it goes up, it's going to come down, it's going to get to 0. And you as a Muslim, you're not allowed, or we are not allowed to take part in that. Now, the reason why I mentioned these 5 things is because once a scholar says cryptocurrencies are permissible, there are currencies that, for example, are used in the gambling industry. Is that permissible for a Muslim? No. There are coins that are used in the wine industry. It's not permissible for a Muslim. Okay? And whatever trade you're doing, you pay for something, you get it on the spot. No leverage, no futures trading, on the spot. Yedin, biyed, right? You give immediately and you also get back immediately. So these 5 principles, I believe, are very, very important to make sure that a cryptocurrency that one is investing in is Sharia compliant. Now, very, very quickly, I can see that we're running out of time. I will just run through quickly the etiquette that we should have as Muslims while we invest. And the most important is to educate ourselves. So we have to educate ourselves to make informed decisions. Once you hear something is, this sheikh said it's haram, or this person said there's shubha, it's likely that it's halal and you've left money on the table. Right? You've left money on the table. You've just followed an assumption. And assumptions don't avail the truth in any way, shape or form. So it's very important to educate ourselves, it's very important to educate ourselves to be able to make informed decisions, inshallah. My target is to be able. So, a very quick recap, inshallah. Number one, the history and motivation behind cryptocurrencies was never because someone just wanted to make money. I had a sheikh describe cryptocurrencies as just a bunch of numbers going up and down. And a Muslim should not, sit down and wait for numbers to go up and down. But that's not what it is. The reason behind it was a group of people saw a financial system that most countries have adopted that has so many flaws, and they decided to try and solve that problem. And that is very good and encouraging the Sharia. Then the 5 principles that make cryptocurrencies Sharia compliant. Number 1, it should be a store of value. Number 2, it should be a medium of exchange. Number 3, there should be transparency in the recourse. Number 4 is that it should not be a Ponzi scheme. It should not be a Ponzi scheme. And number 5, it has to have an established or projected, permissible, real-world use case, inshallah. So I would, inshallah, end with this and give a bunch of references. Anybody who wants to learn a lot more. There's a book called The Bitcoin Standard. Very important reading that I recommend for everyone. The Bitcoin Standard. Because, listen, whether you like it or not, the industry is headed there. So you better jump on the boat. Whether you like it or not, we're headed there. Because the traditional banking systems themselves are adopting the technology behind the cryptocurrencies. The second book I recommend is The Untold Story of Bitcoin. A guy called Nathaniel Popper. He really speaks about the story of Bitcoin, and it took him over 300 interviews globally in different countries to actually follow the groups that came up with this. I highly recommend you to read that. Crypto wars. So many of the issues and so many of the bad elements or bad things that happen in the cryptocurrency markets, they're in this book called Crypto Wars. I highly recommend that you read that. Number 4, if you want to learn more about the Sharia compliance of these tokens, there's a sheikh by the name of Sheikh Joe Bradford. He's an American graduate of the Islamic University of Medina, and he's really researched this area, and he has worked in Islamic banking and finance for decades. So you can check out his website. He has so many videos, joebradford.net. You would see a lot of content, inshallah. So I'd like to end here, Sheikh. I'd like to thank Imamna Mujahid, Fidahullah, and Sheikh Abdullah for giving us the platform to come and discuss about this. And inshallah ta'ala, we will try to make it more frequent, that we would discuss some of these issues, and even sometimes issues that relate to the challenges with the youth. And
also a great lecture about the digital money, especially the cryptocurrency. Before questions, I need to add clarification about what Madam mentioned during his lecture about anything is permissible except what Allah Ta'ala or the Prophet Surah Al-An'am. So, قل لا أجد فيما أوحي إلي محرما على طاعم يطعمه حتى. So this verse is talking about what we are eating and the animals that we used to slaughter and eat. So not about the ibadah, but ibadah, anything haram except what Allah Ta'ala asks you to do. But anything you eat or you drink is halal, is permissible, except if Allah is the clarification. And secondly, concerning the money, we know that in Islamic perspective, that if people agree, even a piece of paper is a money, so it's money, it's become money. And also, concerning the cryptocurrency, people used to say that there is something gara. Is it ambiguity? Is it
ambiguous?
Yes, ambiguous.
Yeah.
So is it, what can you say about the ambiguous one?
Decentralized cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin, it is people's money. The people that make the network are those that put trust in the system, okay? There is no one central authority, there is not a company, there isn't a group of people that maybe they're doing some things behind the scenes that can lead to the loss of people's wealth. You don't have a problem there. But when, in terms of the other cryptocurrencies, the altcoins, that, for example, there's a cryptocurrency that is used for a particular industry. There's a cryptocurrency that is used in the logistics industry, for example. So you have to go through the white paper, as we mentioned. There's a white paper that outlines basically what the cryptocurrency is all about, and it also speaks about the tokenomics, as I said, like the distribution of the currency. So whenever you see that the distribution or the company behind it retains over 30% of the coins for themselves, there's a problem there. Do you get what I'm saying? If they're retaining a majority of the distribution for themselves, which means they can sway the market however they want. Do you get the idea? Bitcoin as it is today, there can only be 21 million of the coins. 21 million coins, there are over 20 million that have already been minted. And they're all in the hands of people. So there isn't one person that has majority of the coins that can now sway the market the way he wants. So that's why if you see a cryptocurrency whereby the issuer of the currency has the majority, has over 30%, there is something going wrong and you should stay away from it. Because what would most likely happen is a rug pull. They're going to bring you in, and once the value goes up, they sell it, and whoop, it goes back to zero. They've taken the money, and you're left with nothing. So those 5 principles that I mentioned really have to be applied to each of the cryptocurrencies. Okay. I don't know if that helps, inshallah.
Because we have only 5, okay, 2 minutes.
Give
an example of a central register where everyone...
Decentralized.
Decentralized register?
Yes.
Where everyone come and sign in?
Yes.
And everyone can see transaction of everyone?
Yes.
And everyone confirm if there is a certain balance in your account?
Yes. Yes.
So that means it must solve the issue of privacy.
Okay. The beauty is that when you speak about privacy, you want to know this person did this transaction, and you also want to check that this person purchased X with the money. That's what the current banking system does. Because once you use your card, they know that you purchased something at this store. They know exactly what you bought. But the anonymity in Bitcoin is such that, yes, everybody in the network has a record of the transactions, but nobody knows what you did with it. You get the idea? So everybody has a record that this amount of money has been sent to this wallet. I've sent X amount of money to this person, but nobody knows what I did with it. You get the idea? And because everybody has that record, you don't have one central authority that if that person is hacked, then the data can get into the wrong hands. I don't know if I answer the question. You get the idea? So you have an anonymity that the banking system, the current banking system doesn't give you. You get the idea? Yeah.
So I think only one question that is.
Right, sir. Sorry? Bitcoin? Do you pay zakat? Absolutely. So you take the current value, okay? You take the current value of what you have. At the end of the year, yes. So let's say it went up to 50,000. Now it's 40,000. What profits did you take? When it went to 50,000, did you sell? And then when it came back to 40,000, you bought it back. So now you have 10,000 profit, right? But if you didn't sell and it came down to 40,000, you pay zakat on 40,000, the current price, okay? Not the previous price.
So you should just
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's like a gambling. So I don't know what it is.
So it said that it looks like gambling.
Although brother mentioned so many figures in terms of the cryptocurrency.
So what I'd like to advise you to do is educate yourself. As I mentioned, I think you weren't around. What was the motivation behind coming up with cryptocurrency? Usually when people gamble, what are they after? They're after trying to make money. The team that came up with cryptocurrency, or the first cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, they didn't have anything to do with money. All they had was motivation from a bad financial system that the Federal Reserve or the central bank can issue or print money at a will, which means there is inflation and the money that was previously in circulation reduces value. And they were also concerned that there is a central authority that is dictating all of these things. Central bank. If you have good people there, you'd have good policy. If you have bad people, you have trouble. In Nigeria, we have the same issues, right? The central bank and the people who run it, especially in the past, they have all sorts of scandals. So these guys were motivated by these problems. How do we come up with money that is digital, whereby we don't have to trust a central authority, whereby the people that agree, like trust would be put back in the hands of the people, okay? So I would highly recommend that you really read about Bitcoin. There's a book I would recommend, Bitcoin Standard, the Bitcoin Standard. It was written by Saifuddin Amos. I highly recommend that. And if you don't want to spend the time reading, there is Sheikh Joe Bradford, Hafidahullah. He's a graduate of Islamic University of Medina in the United States, and he's really researched this and he spent a lot of time. You can check out his website. He speaks about these currencies. So the beauty is when people gamble, things tend to go to zero. When there's a Ponzi scheme, then it would drop and go back to zero. But now Bitcoin has dropped, but it hasn't gone to zero. And now the federal government has said we've lifted the ban on cryptocurrencies because they've seen value there. You get the idea. And then, interestingly, I'm sure you've heard of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world. They have like $10 trillion worth of assets. They've issued, them and 11 other asset managers, they've issued a Bitcoin ETF, an exchange traded fund. It would allow people to be able to invest in Bitcoin without necessarily holding it, without necessarily owning it. And that has been approved by the SEC. So the feds and the governments are now adopting it, and it's becoming more mainstream. So if you had people gambling on that, the feds wouldn't see value in it. You get the idea?
So the bottom line is the NIA.
Yes.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah,
Exactly.
Yeah. Another figure in that regards is Dr. Bashir Aliyu Azeez. He has a lot of lectures that he delivered, wonderful one, excellent one, about the cryptocurrency. And our Sheikh Abdullah also, Akramakallah. Sheikh Abdullah, Dr. Abdullah, that heading our masjid and also education and da'wah of the ICRC, that is Sheikh Abdullah Ahmad Bamba. So he's an expert also about this matter that our brother discussed. May Allah reward the audience and also listeners and viewers of this great lecture. May Allah reward our guest lecturer. May Allah accept our own supplications and ibadat. May Allah guide us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We pray for the management of the ICC. May Allah support them. May Allah guide them. May Allah protect them. May Allah uplift their banner to the Canada. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.